This is a Triple J podcast.
Before we get to the podcast, I want to let you know tickets are still available for Science with Dr. Karl live. Thank you so much to everyone who's already bought tickets. They are going, so if you want to see this segment on the main stage, you can do so August 11 at the Enmore Theatre. Tickets available via Ticketek. Go snap them up. All right, let's get to this week's episode where if you've bought some flowers and you want to extend their life, there's a way to do that. We get some really great advice, but if you want to extend the life of your dog, unfortunately, the jury is still out on that one. We're going to get into it in this week's episode. I'm Lucy Smith. Let's dive in. Dr. Karl joins me right now. Dr. Karl, you had a great morning listening to the radio. Tell me about it.
I was surprised at how many different songs there are. And now who are our morning hosts? There's...
Currently, Jordan and Phil.
Man, they were having so much fun. And they're giving away hoodies and stuff. And apparently we're up to 1.9 million votes, which is maybe we'll probably get up to 10% of the Australian population. This is amazing.
Exciting. So this is the science, really. You are telling us that. So if we got to, okay, I've got an 11 a.m. update. Are you ready, Dr. Karl?
11 a.m. update. We're past 1.9 million, are we? Okay.
1,983,981 votes.
Wow.
So in 16,000 votes, we'll have reached 2 million.
Wow. And what I found astonishing was in the top 100, certain pairs were really close. Like between number 65 and 64, there were 4 votes splitting them apart. And number 7 and 8, there were 15 votes. We need a mathematician to tell us what's going on here.
Can I tell you what's crazy as well, Dr. Karl? Currently, as it stands, there are 3 votes. 3 votes separating 100 to 101.
Wow.
So if 3 people happen to submit their votes for that song, you could literally change a track making its way into the countdown.
Oh, the power of the vote. I'm not going to be able to listen to all 100, so I'm just going to have to make a quick choice by 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock this Arvo, Thursday. Is that 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, or does it ripple across Australia with the different time zones?
Australian Eastern Standard Time. So you've got to check where you are in WA, in South Australia. Good question, Dr. Karl.
Boo, the chronological patriarchy, which got invented around 1880 because of railway lines.
Oh.
So what happened was that you began to have railway lines in the 1800s that were going east-west, and suddenly you could travel at relatively high speed, say 100 kilometres an hour for hours, and what was sunrise here was different from sunrise there, and so all the countries of the world got together around 1870 or something and decided, okay, we're going to have to get a time zone thing happening, and so there's 24 hours a day and there's 360 degrees in a circle, so they split the going around the Earth into 15-degree bands. Each 15 degrees was 1 hour. And then who was going to have 0? Well, the 2 big navies at the time, this is before America became big, were the French and the British. But the British had a bigger navy, so of course it went through the United Kingdom. And so that's Greenwich Mean Time 0 is there. So that's how they managed to get it. And also they had more maps of the world, the British Navy. So that's how Greenwich Mean Time is the 0 point.
Okay.
That's the story.
And that's how we know why the voting is scattered across the time zones.
Yeah, so with Perth, I have to get in at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So before you listen to it, okay, message done.
Karl, let's get to the questions.
To the audience.
Whew, we got Jazz in Sydney. Dr. Jazz, what do you want to know?
Hey guys, I want to know, what chance do we stand if we hit an apocalypse here in Australia?
Moderately good. So it's kind of surprising how big Australia is and how far away we are from everything. So the distance between, say, Brisbane and Adelaide is bigger than the distance between London and some of the war zones at the moment in Europe. Right? We are very, very lucky how far we are away from everything. We also have the advantage of rich natural resources. So as it turns out, the Australian economy survives by exporting dirt and the products of trees from the past, either fossil fuels or the gases thereof. We're isolated, of course. We have an advanced education system, advanced infrastructure. We have good emergency response systems. We do have the disadvantage that we have something like 86% of the population, because we're so big, living in the 8 festering sores that we call cities. Okay, cities are not festering sores, but I'm being a bit melodramatic there. The disadvantage, mate, Do you know did you know, Lucy, question without notice, did you know that Australia can't even make photocopy paper anymore?
No.
Do you know we can't even make bricks in bulk?
Why?
We can't, because we've outsourced everything. We've stopped being a manufacturing country. And if any politician says they're going to bring manufacturing back into Australia, I'm beginning to love them a little bit. We do have a limited fresh water, and we are susceptible to global warming. So in the big fires of 19 and 20, on the east coast of Australia, 1 in every 5 trees burned. But on average, we are well placed to survive the apocalypse. Does that give you happiness and joy?
Yes, that does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, and I was reading an article about preppers, and you know how preppers get everything from a handgun to a sawn-off shotgun up to an 80mm King Gustav up to a nuclear weapon. It turns out that if you actually do simulations, the most important thing that a prepper needs is buckets.
Oh.
For washing yourself, taking out the sewage.
Oh,
Mate,
yeah.
You don't necessarily need an AK-47. You really need a bucket.
You need to be able to wash yourself and have somewhere to...
And get rid of the waste. On average, if you want to run a pig or a human healthy, you need 100 litres of water per person per day. You see, in the old days, what would happen is that you would make a bit of a mess and then you would nomadically go away from it.
Oh.
Whereas nowadays we tend to be in places where we don't live where we are. So rather than walk away from our waste, we have to wash the waste off us. We wash it off our bodies, off our clothes.
We shit where we eat, so to speak.
And so that's why we need water. So that's where Australia's at a bit of a disadvantage with our limited water infrastructure.
So you mentioned dirt, Dr. Karl.
Yes.
Kenzie on the Gold Coast, you've got a question?
Hey, Dr. Karl and Dr. Lucy.
Hi.
I just want to give a quick shout out to Matt. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Matt.
Yeah.
And remember, time is just the universe's way of stopping everything from happening at once. It'd be really messy.
That's
anyway,
true.
Getting on to your question there, yep.
I want to ask how dirty is dirt. So I went to Lost Paradise at the start of the year and I actually sat through your live session, Dr. Karl.
Oh, thank you for coming. That was fun.
Yeah, it was a bit rough that started at 8 a.m, but anywho.
8 a.m, it is unnatural, yep.
My question is, you were there and we were there for 3 days and a lot of people were wearing scarves around their head to avoid inhaling all the dirt. And obviously at some point there's going to be dirt into our respiratory system. How does our body process that?
A little bit of dirt is good, too much is bad. So dirt's got all sorts of random things in it, like organic matter. If you hang around with people, you got dead skin, cells, hair, pet dander, pollen, pollutants, and you got your bacteria and your viruses, and you can have various nasty bacteria like Clostridium tetani that causes tetanus. Get vaccinated against that, especially if you're a tradie. And also, depending on where you are agriculturally, if you've got crops growing nearby and they're spraying them, you can have pesticides and also industrial waste coming into it. So a little bit of dirt is not too bad. And if you don't wash yourself for a while, you do, after an initial couple of weeks, your body adjusts itself into different microorganisms on the skin. Although I do love having a wash. I do remember with our four-wheel driving, what we did was have an external shower on our truck. So we had a heat exchanger going into the radiator, so that when we'd stop, we'd plug in the shower hose and then just switch on a pump. And with one litre of water, you just shower outside and naked in the open, and 1 litre of water just makes such a world of difference. You feel so good. But in general, you're going to be. It's not going to give you that many diseases in the short term, probably-ish.
And on your point, Kenzie, I went to a festival in April in the desert, Coachella, and on the first day, it was a particularly dry day. It was very hot. So then we were kicking up all this dust. And then and it's when people are kind of moving as a mass, as a crowd, right? So at the end, everyone's leaving, everyone's going in the same formation, and the dust is just kind of rising. And we did the same thing, just kind of put a scarf around our face. Dr. Karl, how effective is a scarf when it comes to dirt and dust in the air? Should we really be wearing, a heavy-duty mask or something like that?
In most cases, no, but so you got the problem that with your gut, if it comes in at one end, a few days later it'll come out the other end. But if it goes into your lungs, it doesn't come out. Luckily, we've got a good sneezing reflex, and you can count on it most of the time. But if you're actually being able to see dust in the air, in that case, just wear the mask, and that'll reduce the amount of stuff going into your lungs. Yes, done.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, Kenzie.
Thank you, Dr. Kenzie.
Amazing. Thanks, guys.
And you mentioned viruses, and viruses, particularly in the dirt. Risey in Adelaide, what do you want to know?
Good morning, Dr. Karl, Dr. Lucy. Absolute honour and privilege to be speaking to both of you. I was a bit sick last week, and it got me thinking that everything living has a purpose, like everything's important for an ecosystem, etc. Do viruses have the same sort of importance?
Well, yes. You would not exist if it wasn't for viruses. Because as part of you getting born, a sperm had to meet up with an egg. And then you had to have this wonderful organ called the placenta swing into action. And it was a buffer between what would become you and your mother. And it would allow nutrition in and waste to go out. And the only reason that the placenta sticks to the inside of the uterus is that we got invaded by viruses 480 million years ago. So just to give you a bit of a time scale, Earth, 4.5 billion years old, life, about 3.8 billion years ago, but all single-celled, just like bacteria. Then multi-celled happened about 1 million years ago, and about 535 million years ago, there was this massive explosion in biodiversity, and we don't know why. About 450 million years ago, for the first time, fire could happen on planet Earth because we had enough oxygen in the atmosphere. Oxygen is a recent addition. And around that time, in the oceans, 2 viruses invaded the DNA of what would become us. They're called syncytium A and B, and they then inserted themselves into the DNA, and those viruses are essential for the human female placenta to stick to the inside of the human female uterus. And if it wasn't for those viruses, there wouldn't be mammals. So what purpose do viruses have? They just want to have babies. Nothing personal, they just want to have babies. And accidentally along the way, wait for this one, 8% of your DNA is viruses that invaded us in the past. And there's a really interesting article in Nature about diseases, how they've changed in humans over the last 37,000 years. And I haven't finished reading it, so I can't tell you more about it. But it does seem that there were big kicks when we went from nomadic into staying in cities, and so diseases could come into us. So purposes of viruses, they just want to live, but accidentally they made it possible for mammals to exist, so for the placenta to stick to the inside of the uterus. Is that a bit...
That's really cool.
Oh.
Yay. Thanks, Risey. Roscoe in Shellharbour, what do you want to know?
Hi, I just heard about this pill for dogs that extends their lives. Like, how is that even possible? And if they can do that for dogs, why can't they do that for humans?
I've never heard of this, Roscoe. Have you, Dr. Karl?
It fits into the category of, we want your money, so we're going to tell you a little lie, and then you will give us your credit card number. And by the way, I have had 1 email a day for the last 2 weeks of people saying, hey, I saw you advertising this stuff on Facebook, and I ordered it and it didn't come. And also they charged me an extra $300, and it's in US dollars anyway. What are you doing, you rat bag? And it's not me. It's an AI representation of me. I do not promote any commercial products. Getting back to the pill for the dogs. We don't really have one for dogs. You can actually have a clone of your dog made if you've got $50,000.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll take a sample out of its mouth, you can get some DNA, and they'll try to grow 100 dogs, and one of them will survive, and that'll be something that looks very similar to your dog. Longevity in humans, we're learning more and more about it. There are a whole bunch of people trying different things. There seems to be something weird happening where if you hook up an old mouse to the blood supply of a young mouse, the young mouse gets older and faster than normal, and the older mouse has its aging delayed. There's something in the blood. And now, of course, we've got some billionaires who are going around buying blood from young people and putting it into their bloodstream. And that's not a good pathway. We are stuck with 2 periods of aging. And this is based on a study where instead of taking a blood sample and measuring 5 or 6 things in your blood, they measured 135,000. And they did this on 100 people. And they did it for a couple of years. And they ended up with 250 billion data points. And they found that around somewhere in your 40s and 50s, the chemicals to do with metabolism do a sudden drop of up to about 80%, where you suddenly find yourself saying, oh, I'm doing the same amount of exercise and I'm running as much and I'm eating the same, but I'm putting on a bit of weight and not putting on as much muscle. Okay, that's what's happening. Your body is saying, look, mate, you're over the hill, you're not 22, see you later. And then another one happens in your 60s or 70s when you lose systems with chemicals with regard to your immune system. So we're looking at that and working out what to do with regard to longevity. The best thing you can do is that really boring thing your grandmother said, which is eat right and do some exercise and get some sleep.
But what about the dog? Why can't our dogs live forever?
Because we don't have the treatment for that yet, and there is a relationship between the size of the dog and its age. It's an inverse relationship. There is one thing we can do with regard to cancers. Now think about humans, 70 kilograms, versus an elephant, 100 times as much, 7 tons. So therefore, the elephant has 100 times more cells, and therefore, those cells should undergo 100 times more mutations, and elephants, which live 70 years roughly, should die 100 should have 100 times more cancers, and they don't. And we went looking and we found, this is called Peto's paradox, P-E-T-O, and then paradox, look it up in Wikipedia, and we've worked out the trick. We have a chemical and a gene with the same name, GP53, blah, 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 blah. And what it does is it finds mistakes in your DNA when your cells replicate it and repairs it. And we have 1 copy or 2 copies per cell. Elephants, like about a couple of hundred.
Wow.
So all we have to do is mutate ourselves, change our DNA, and then we can get rid of cancers. You see, in Australia, over the last 30 years, cancer treatments and diagnoses have saved 250,000 people from dying. But if we modify our DNA, we can do that. There's a case of a man who had to inject himself with insulin, and in 2021 in the USA, after 20 years research, they worked out how to modify his DNA so that his DNA would start making insulin again. So in the same way, we can modify our DNA to make GP53. But extended lifespans, I'm sorry, it's really boring.
Yeah.
Eat right. Do you do some exercise, Roscoe, and eat right? And
Yeah.
But it's not about Roscoe, it's about the dog.
it's about the dog. Okay. Okay. So with some dogs, like the Labradors, they do not have the gene to stop them eating. And if you just give them food, they'll eat themselves to death.
Oh, my God.
So you got to exercise your dog and you'll exercise yourself and blah, blah, blah.
And as far as this longevity pill, we've got a vet nurse texting in saying no. So, Roscoe, I don't know. It seems the jury's out on this one.
Yeah, they're lying to you, Roscoe.
Aww.
Who would have thought that social media would tell you lies just to get some money from you? Impossible. Impossible.
We've got Bailey in Perth here. Now,
Dr.
Bailey,
Bailey.
you are taking us to space. What's going on?
Yeah, hi guys. I was wondering that on the news before, there was said that there was a rock from Mars that was found and it sold for like $7 million. How do we know that that's actually from Mars? What type of testing can they do to show that it's from Mars if we've never personally brought anything back?
Correct.
Mars,
We
like
have
how
not
would
brought
you-
anything back from Mars, but we did send the 2 Viking spacecraft, which went to Mars and landed there. And for some reason, people don't worry about that. They do claim we didn't go to the moon. 5% of Americans claim we didn't go to the moon, but they're happy that we went to Mars. And we did some primitive analysis, and there was the hint that there might have been life, and then they said no, and then they said yes, and then we don't know. But we're talking about isotopes. Did you do atoms at school, Dr. Bailey?
I did not know.
Okay, so an atom looks like a mini solar system. It's got a heavy lumpy bit in the middle, like the sun. We call that the nucleus. And going around it, we've got, instead of planets, we've got electrons. Looking at that heavy lumpy bit, you can have different isotopes. Like you can have oxygen, but you can have different extra neutrons. So you can have oxygen 16, oxygen 18, and the different ratios of these isotopes varies where you are in the universe. On planet Earth, on the moon, on Mars. And so, firstly, by analysing the rocks, we've got some sort of isotope signature, like oxygen 16, 17 and 18. And then also, we've found other chemicals that are more common in meteors from space. The main thing telling us that these things came from Mars, I'm guessing, is the isotope ratios. And that's basically it. If there's a space scientist that can tell me more, please ring in. What's the magic number?
0439 757 555. Text in if you do have a follow-up. We've got Phoebe in Nam here.
Phoebe?
Dr. Phoebe, what's your question?
Hi, Dr. Karl. Hi, Lucy. This is a question that me and my little sister Caitlin thought up. When you wake up first in the morning, and you put your hand into a fist, why can't you squeeze it? Like, why does your arm feel so weak?
Okay. So here's the weird thing. It's called sleep inertia. Now, your brain weighs about 2% of your body weight, but it takes 20% of your blood supply. And when you wake up, it hasn't got the full blood supply. A little diversion here. If you're looking at a little toddler or an infant, 1 year old, and they're trying to stand up, you're thinking, gee, they're using a lot of their energy in trying to stand up. Mate, they're using 50% of their energy on their brain.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so getting back to the brain. So this thing is called sleep inertia. And it lasts, it's a grogginess, it's a lack of mental function, and it lasts for anything from 10 minutes to a couple of hours, depending on have you had a good history of sleeping in the past. Like if you haven't had good sleep for a few days, it'll last longer. And it's more, it all depends on when you wake up out of your sleep. So if you wake out of a really deep sleep, the sleep inertia lasts longer. And we've actually measured in the brain that firstly, in those initial time after you wake up, the blood supply is less in your brain. So instead of being 20%, it might be down to 18 or 17. And the velocity, we've actually been able to measure that. The blood is not flowing as quickly. So we're guessing now at this stage, what I talk about is definitely true. But now I'm guessing that the bit of your brain that says activate the muscles near your elbow. So, Phoebe, have you got a spare hand there? Or you're probably holding the phone. But later...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but later do this. Grab with one hand, your arm just below the elbow and then squeeze your hand and open it up and you'll suddenly feel all these muscles contracting. Your hand is a remote control device. Your hand is run by the muscles near your elbow and they're run by your brain. And I'm guessing... I don't know for sure, I'm guessing the blood supply to that part of the brain is not coordinated enough. It's not just a simple case of turn on the muscles, but you've got to turn on the right muscles in the right order. And that involves coordination. And back in the old days, we had to do 100-hour shifts. And a 100-hour shift is where you start on Friday morning, and then you're working in the hospital till Saturday morning, then till Sunday morning and Monday morning and Tuesday morning. Okay, it's not 100 hours in a row, it's 96. And you try to get some sleep. And one of the older, wiser doctors said, when they wake you up, do not make a decision for 10 minutes.
Wow.
Do not make a decision. Say, I'm hearing you, and write things down. And as you're writing them down, you'll suddenly realise, so the sodium level was 140, not 120. Oh, I got that wrong. And do not make a decision for 10 minutes after you wake up.
Yeah.
I think you can say, I'll have a cup of tea. but anything
that
more
you'll know.
Yeah, but so does that help, Phoebe? So I'm guessing that the part of your brain that involves the coordination of your arm muscles isn't working properly yet.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, Phoebe, you do know that tomorrow morning when people wake up, you're going to have people trying to do this across the country, trying to squeeze their fist. And that's what you've started.
And by the way, if you want to squeeze somebody's hand without hurting them, get the person who's offering the squeezed fingers 2 fingers, not 3, because 3 fingers can really hurt. But if you've got 2 fingers, mate, you can just about have a jackhammer squeezing and it doesn't hurt. Okay, so squeeze somebody else's fingers and get them to try it the first thing you wake up, and then a few hours later, and then report back to us. And if you write this down, you might even get a Triple J fun pack.
You might get a prize pack.
You
We've
might be
got
lucky.
Tom in Booyong here. Now, Tom, what do you want to know?
Hi guys, I was just wondering what actually happens to a photon when it hits something. So does it turn it into heat, or is that sort of just the boring end to it, or is there something else that actually goes on with it?
I'm still having difficulty with quantum mechanics, and I've done podcasts with 3 individual, very clever professors of quantum mechanics, and I'm still confused. But I've picked up something that the other physicists in the School of Physics at Sydney University tell me is true, and here it comes. Electromagnetic energy, or light, and light includes everything from X-rays to gamma rays to visible light to heat to radio. Okay, electromagnetic radiation is a wave when it travels. Now, by the way, when it's in that wave, it does not experience time. It gets emitted and there is no time. Time doesn't travel at 1 second per second, it just stops because it's travelling at the speed of light. So light is a wave when it travels, and instantaneously it is a photon when it is born or dies. So a wave of light comes from the sun. It takes 8.5 minutes to travel through space, and it doesn't hit a single thing, and then it runs into a molecule of oxygen or nitrogen in the atmosphere. They're the 2 common ones. And instantly, I think I'm right with instantly, it gets turned into from a wave into a photon and is absorbed, and then after a slight time delay, it is re-emitted as a photon, and the moment that photon has been emitted, it instantly turns into a wave and then travels. And it might travel millions of kilometres in empty space, which is not empty, or a fraction of a millimetre in our atmosphere. So I'll say it again, light is a wave when it travels, and is a photon when it is born or it dies. And if there's any physicists that want to enlighten me on this one, please ring in. Does that help a bit, Dr. Tom?
Yeah, it does a bit.
It does a bit. It is complicated. Don't expect to get it the first time. I've been trying for years. I still haven't got it.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Working
We're
on it,
learning.
man.
We're
Working on
learning. Brock in Ballarat, what's your question?
Hey, doctors. I'm just curious why our teeth need nerves in them.
So on one hand, the outside of the tooth, the enamel, is totally dead, and literally they will outlast the pyramids. But they have to survive inside your mouth. So the big rule to remember is the number of teeth that you can have is genetically determined, 32, but the amount that you end up having depends on your diet. And if you have a hard diet, your jaw, in a human lifetime, not evolutionary over thousands of years, but in just a lifetime growing up from a child into a teenager into an adult, your jaw will get bigger if you have a hard diet, and then you won't have any teeth buried in your gums. You'll have a big jaw with all the teeth in it. But on the other hand, the hard diet will wear down your teeth faster. So the tooth is there to do different jobs. So at the very front, you've got the incisors, which are like a sharp knife blade that just cuts against each other. And then at the sides, you've got the canines, which are for ripping and tearing. And then heading towards the back, you've got the molars, which are for grinding. So when people say, oh, we're not evolved for a meat-eating diet, yes, we are, but then being vegetarian improves your life expectancy, yeah, forget all that. So going back to your teeth, the inside of the tooth is the pulp, and that's alive. And it has nerves to keep the inside knowing what's going on. And you're thinking, why does it need to know what's going on? Well, suppose you're eating some nice soft meal and then suddenly, like an olive, and then suddenly there's an olive seed in it. And you go crunch, you could actually, if you get the tooth at the wrong angle, shatter the tooth because it's strong but it's brittle. And so part of having nerves inside the tooth is to warn you that you could, if you keep on biting hard, break your tooth, which you don't want to do, and so you stop. And also, a first warning for if it's too hot or too cold. In our history, usually not too cold, but definitely too hot is a problem. Does that kind of help there, Dr. Brock?
Yeah, it does, actually. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I was getting a filling and the doctor needed to numb the area.
Oh, I love
and
that.
The syringe right on the nerve.
Oh.
It was like nothing else.
Oh, okay, I'll tell you, this is what I do. Hey, dearly beloved dentist, I've got a really low pain tolerance and I scream a lot, so can you start by putting right now the anaesthetic gel.
The numbing cream. Oh,
Yeah,
even
okay.
that though had the numbing cream,
Okay,
and then
so you put the numbing cream on first, and then you go to the second stage where you have so you can use a really tiny needle, and then they put in a big fat needle, as opposed to going through just a big fat needle with a syringe the size of a bicycle pump. No, work your way up slowly. It'll take longer, and then if you want, you can go for the nitrous oxide as well. That helps too.
it was insane. Susan in Barara Heights. Susan,
Susan?
you got a question about
Hey.
flowers?
Yeah, I do have a question about flowers. I was just wondering why, if flowers all get their water from the same source, why some flowers are better as cut flowers and will last for days in a vase, and then others will just die and wilt within hours.
Good question.
If they have a big fat stem with a good vasculature for supplying water up and down, they'll survive longer than if you've got a thin, fragile stem. Secondly, if the flower itself, the petal, is relatively thick and robust, it'll survive better than a thin one, which will dehydrate faster. Then you can have ethylene. Now, ethylene is that gas that comes out of bananas. And so if you've got an unripe pear, if you put it in a paper bag with bananas, the bananas will release this ethylene gas, which is a hydrocarbon, but it's also made by natural plants. And what it will do is make it get older faster. Chrysanthemums tend to make very little ethylene gas, so they survive longer. Then you have specific antioxidants in the different flowers, which can help them survive longer or less. How they were harvested counts, and also changing the water every 3 days. But I still do not know. What's the story with the aspirin in the water? You've got to change the water every day, not just leave it for days and days, but change it every day. But some people say, you put an aspirin in the water and that makes them survive better. And I don't know. So if somebody does, if there's a flower person whose job it is, please ring into the magic number or text us.
Any florist
Yes,
is
any
aspirin in the
florist.
water, because sometimes they'll give you these little pellets to put in to extend the
And
life
what are
of
those
them.
sachets? What's in them? Do they work?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And I don't know what's in them. I just trust them and I just chuck them in
Hang
usually
on.
2 to
Dr.
3
Lucy,
days.
did you buy 5 sets of flowers and then half with you know where I'm going on this one? Okay, right.
I need to do the
You
homework.
got to do the homework, you got to do the study, and remember, write it down. That's the difference between science and fooling around, writing
Yep.
it down.
Susan, good advice maybe if you're buying yourself flowers or someone's getting them for you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Love
you.
that. Mel in Collie, you noticed something when you were in Bali recently. What's going on?
Morning, doctors. Yeah, we just went to Bali, and I have to say the weather over there was so much better than over here. We noticed that with my daughter, firstly, her nails were growing longer, and she said, do we have any nail clippers? And the whole family's nails grew really long while we're in Bali, like really quickly. So we all had to come home and cut both of our fingernails and toenails, even though we'd only recently just cut them. Whereas when we're at home, it takes quite significantly longer.
Okay, now you're sure that you recently cut them?
Yes, we all cut them before Bali.
And how long were you in Bali for?
Only a week.
Okay, that's a short time. Now, there is that really annoying thing that happens with your fingernails where they grow, nothing matters, and then suddenly, oh my God, it's so annoying, I've got to cut it now. But you said that you did cut them before you went over. What we have here on this is one bit of research only done by one person who is a very limited sample size of a male, white, Caucasian medical doctor at the beginning of the Second World War. And just before the Second World War started off, he thought, gee, I'm a junior doctor now. I wonder what happens with fingernails. I know what I'll do. And he got a very sharp triangular file. And then on the fingernails, where you've got that little bit where the white bit kisses against the coloured bit, near the base of your nail, he, at the beginning of every month, would draw a line on the fingernail at that point, and then measure them every day until once every month until it got all the way to the very end and then fell off again. Now, the Second World War was going on, so he got a bit busy, so he eventually stopped doing it to all of his nails and just did it to a couple. And his findings are this. Number one, fingernails grow faster than toenails. Two, and he's got records, and he did this for half a century, he's the only one we know of, that the middle fingernails grow fastest, and that with age, the left thumbnail slows from about 3.5 millimetres a month at his age of 32 to maybe 10% less at age 69. And this whole thing of the fingernails just grew suddenly when I was in Bali, he moved around during the Second World War and that didn't come up in his records, but it's a sample size of one. So the answer is we don't know. And we need somebody else to update the research. And you could be that person, Dr. Mel, and you could win an Ig Nobel Prize for your groundbreaking research.
I'll just have to go on more holidays, I think.
And write it
Exactly.
down.
Mel, you got to go to Bali pretty
And write it
regularly,
down.
it seems.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Thank you, Dr. Mel.
Hey, Dr. Karl, earlier we had a question about the lifespan of flowers, what can keep them, healthier for longer. Someone's saying the flower sachets that you sometimes get from the florist that you can just pebble into the water. Someone's saying they're most likely sugar. The aspirin acts like a fungicide. You can also put a spot of bleach in the water for flowers, mainly keep the cut part and water cleaner for longer.
Well, and is this person a florist?
I don't know.
Oh,
I can't
please
confirm, but I
identify
trust
yourself next
them.
time.
They,
Thank you.
they
you
speak
appeared
with
on social
authority.
media.
Yeah. All right. We've got Matt from Jindawi on the line. Oh, Matt, this is Dr. Karl's favourite topic. What do you want to know?
Well, how you going? I was just wondering about hanging clothes on the line outside.
Oh,
that wonderful
talking my
Australian
language,
brand.
brother.
Loving it.
Yep.
And I was thinking, I'm a bit of a thinker, so I'm like, is this drying faster in the wind when it's spinning, or should I make it not spin?
So the way to understand what's going on is to follow the advice of Richard Feynman and remember that everything is made of atoms. So in this case, you've got 3 atoms together, 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. We call that H2O.
Roger.
Now, the water molecules in the wet clothes will jump off the clothes and then jump back again. And on average, because there's a concentration gradient, they'll tend to move away from the clothes. If you've got a wind, either on a stationary clothesline or you're making an artificial wind by spinning it, that you tend to leave those water molecules behind and the clothes move on, so it will dry faster. However, you can also dry your clothes by hanging them indoors. And I was reading in the latest Choice magazine, you're not supposed to put Lycra stuff through a dryer.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah. I know it's hard because life has to go on. And in some parts of the world, they do not have access to a clothesline, so everything goes in a dryer. But in the latest Choice magazine, there's a whole list of things which I was thinking of being obsessive and photocopying and then sealing it in plastic and then putting it near the dryer to warn people not to put it through the dryer. But then if it's raining, you put it through anyway, so who cares? So, yes, to answer your question, if there's a bit of a wind, things will dry faster.
Well, there you go. Because I was thinking with that wind, if it's going with the wind, how is it drying faster if it was sort of going with the wind,
You're getting a bit of centrifugal force as the clothesline rotates.
Yes.
I've got one of those just lines up the side of the house. It doesn't even get sun. I miss having a Hills hoist.
But it will still work indoors or outdoors. You just have to add enough time. And when it rains for days at a time, you just have the whole house cluttered. And if you don't have a big enough apartment, bummer, boo the patriarchy or something.
That's it.
Oh,
hey,
okay.
We're getting some great texts in,
Hurrah.
Dr. Karl. So someone following up again on the aspirin for cut flowers saying aspirin is you might have to help me on my pronunciation, salicylate?
Salicylate, yep.
Salicylate,
Yep.
which occurs naturally in plants, especially in fruit and veggies, and acts to defend against harmful elements like insects and fungus. Supplementing more salicylate in the vase water is effectively a preservative. Mark from Melbourne saying that.
Okay, so if in your area fungus is a problem, the aspirin will protect against that according to a sample size of 2.
And also, we had our mate who'd been to Bali and they noticed that the family's nails weren't growing as long. Samantha in Wollongong with a good hypothesis saying, is it possible that while they were in Bali, they weren't doing the usual activities that would wear the nails down?
Nails do wear down, and the professor who did that 35-year study on fingernail growth originally tried weighing the end bits of the cut nails, but that he would cut off at the end of each month. But he then suddenly realised that they do abrade away over time. So that is a good point.
And even maybe wearing, thongs the whole time or sandals. They don't have their toes rubbing up against their feet.
And maybe
against their shoes, enclosed shoes.
Yeah, and maybe being on holidays, they weren't doing the housework and cleaning the toilet every couple of
Maybe
days
they were
and loading the
relaxed.
dishwasher. Maybe they were just at that lucky stage where all you have to do is throw the towels in the sink and in the bathtub, and magically they come back clean at the end of the day.
So nice.
So
well,
nice.
Dr. Karl, I'll catch you next week. And that's it. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Science with Dr. Karl. If you want to come along and see how it all goes down live, you can do so during National Science Week. We are doing Science with Dr. Karl live at the Enmore Theatre on August 11. Tickets available now via Ticketek. This episode was produced by Josh Brennan. I'm Lucy Smith. We'll catch you next week.
Dave Marchese here from the Triple J Hack team. Hey, if you love Dr. Karl's podcast like I do, you might enjoy the Hack podcast as well. Each day we bring you the news that matters to you, from the latest science on climate change to what's happening in politics and news around the world. The Hack podcast. It's your daily fix of the news you need to know. Get it wherever you're listening now.